Lucy, and I wanted to make sure we gave another round of applause to the Westside Interfaith Network, and also before they get seated and get started here, can we just give a big round of applause to both of our candidates? It's not easy. I have actually talked with both of them on the Seattle channel. I invite you to check out the show, but I appreciate the fact that they know, and I know, that there are a lot of different audiences to connect with, and I'm glad they're here tonight. And I'm very glad to see a good crowd of people here tonight. I wanted to reiterate a message that Lucy had a minute ago, and that is in regards to when the candidates are talking, when they're finished talking, if we could stay away from cheering or booing or anything along those lines. I think we just want to have a good civil discussion here. If you can hold it all till the end, that would probably be the best way to do that. So thank you for your cooperation there. I'd invite you to be seated if you would, and then we'll have some opening statements here for both of our candidates. Maren, do I have a 1 or a 2 behind my back? I do. Would you like to speak first or go second?
I'll go second.
All right. Rob, you're up with an opening statement of 1.5 minutes, and we will have a couple of timers helping us out here. Vince is in front, and
Gina.
Sorry, Jeannie, there she is. Gina's there as well. So they'll be helping us out with time. We'll do about 1.5 minutes for these opening statements, and then we'll have a number of different questions which have been provided by the League of Women Voters and the Westside Interfaith Network. Quite a few of them. I'm going to try to get to as many as I can, and we'll do that for the bulk of the session here. And then for about a half hour at the end, we will have some questions from the audience. Again, if you'd like to ask a question, write one down, put your hand up, and we'll make sure you're attended to, and you'll be able to get a card and an index card with a pencil and all that. So that'll be all set, and we'll be able to take care of that. Sir, I see your hand there, and I'll make sure that we get you set up there, so someone will be connecting with you in just a minute. But Rob, why don't you start with a 1.5 minute statement, please, about why you're running. Thank you.
Sure. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Rob Saka, running for Seattle City Council in District 1. And first off, thank you to Our Lady of Guadalupe, this church, this facility, all the co-sponsors for organizing this tonight. Excited and honored to be with you. I am a public school dad of 3, Air Force veteran, attorney, community safety advocate. I live in Delridge, that way is Delridge for me, with my family. My kids go to Fairmont Park Elementary. I am the only one in this race who has actual experience writing government policy and helping to pass law. And I've done that by serving on countless government commissions to do things like review and update the King County Constitution, select the new Seattle Police Chief, amongst other things. Through the help of great government programs and community, I was also able to overcome the foster care system and public housing and low-income apartments and food insecurity and housing instability. So I know what it's like to struggle like many of the people I'm hoping to help. And there are a lot of differences, some similarities, a lot of differences between me and my opponent. But change is needed in this city now more than ever. And as a dad from Delridge, I want to normalize things like collaborating across differences, finding common ground, and ultimately getting stuff done, stuff that works for all of us. I will focus on public safety, action on homelessness, and then affordability in our city. Proud to have been endorsed by the 34th District Dems, the sole endorsed candidate, the Seattle Times, and countless council members. Would love to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And I should say once again, Brian Callahan here with you. I am a host for the Seattle channel, appearing on my own recognizance tonight. I'm also a member here of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and I'm glad to be with you. Maren, 1.5 minutes.
Good evening, and thank you everyone for coming. This is a great crowd. Thank you to the sponsors for setting this up. It's always fantastic to connect with a new community. There's 150,000 or 115,000 people in this district, and there's no way to talk to everyone, but things like this really help. So my name is Maren Costa. I've lived in District 1 for 21 years, in Seattle for 33 years. I've been a waitress here and a grocery store clerk. I'm raising my family here, and when Seattle became a tech town, I became a tech worker. In my 20 years as a senior leader in big tech, I gained extensive experience managing big teams, million-dollar budgets, solving big problems, and bringing often competing teams together to get more done. Seattle is one of the most prosperous cities in the world, yet we're failing to make meaningful progress on the key issues of public safety, homelessness, affordable housing, and climate change. I'm running because District 1 shouldn't have to accept more of the same. We need a more balanced approach. We can have police and alternative response. We can lead with compassion and still refuse to tolerate harmful behavior. We can bring people inside by providing emergency housing and wraparound services, and while we prepare for climate change, we can build a thriving city we're proud to pass on to future generations. I want to call out that you probably will hear some misinformation about my campaign tonight, and I guess I'll have a chance to address that when we get there.
Yes, we will. Thank you very much. I'm sure we'll hear a lot tonight, and we're looking forward to a good back and forth. Again, a big thanks to the Westside Interfaith Network, the League of Women Voters, for collating a lot of questions from their members and passing them along to us. I will choose one of these randomly and we'll throw it your way. Let's start with the concern that a lot of people have voiced regarding public drug use in the city. And how about I start with you on this one, Maren? Over the last few years, public drug use has proliferated across the city. One would be challenged to walk down 3rd Avenue or the intersection of 12th and Jackson without encountering people openly selling and utilizing drugs. These open-air markets add to residents' unease about being in certain public spaces. Do you agree with the recently passed ordinance from the City Council to make drug use and possession a gross misdemeanor? What changes, if any, would you have pushed for with this ordinance that was ultimately passed? 90 seconds.
Okay, this is a great question. My concern with the ordinance that was passed is that it seems to me, at this point, to be performative. We don't need more performative politics. We need to get things done and solve problems. If you're someone who wants to incarcerate people for drug use, that won't happen because the police don't have enough time to deal with that, the courts are backed up, and the jails are understaffed and full. If you're someone who wants to provide diversion treatment for people who have substance use disorder, I'm sorry, that also won't happen because we're not funding the programs that we need to do that. I am 100% in favor of treatment for people with substance use disorder. That's what works. It's cheaper, it's more effective, and it's more humane than throwing somebody in jail. I have a son who's adopted out of the foster care system who checks a lot of the boxes. He could end up there. When you put your family member there, you really start to think about how you want them to be treated very humanely. But we need to fund the diversion programs. But this is where I say we can lead with compassion and refuse to tolerate harm. So if there's harmful behavior happening, we need to stop it. And even the harmful behavior that's happening for small businesses and tourism is not okay, and we need to not accept harmful behavior.
Thank you very much for that. And a minute and a half, same question to you, Rob. If you'd like to reiterate, I can, but I think you have a good idea about what's going on here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All good. So we heard my opponent just say she does not support the recently passed drug law. That despite some of the harsh rhetoric that we heard parroted and repeated right here tonight, all it did was put existing state law, localized existing state law at the Seattle City Council level. And so yes, I support it. I strongly support that. Not only that, along the campaign trail, I led and organized a signature and gathering effort and collected hundreds of signatures along the way, a petition, if you will. Then I took the extra step of showing up at Seattle City Council on the day that it was being finally considered, and I testified in favor of that law. I've been telling people, as a dad of 3 young kids, I shouldn't be having to do gymnastics and American Ninja Warrior obstacle courses over people in paraphernalia when I want to go to the junction and visit some small businesses or downtown. And similarly, people suffering from debilitating drug dependency issues should come to expect better from their city, that we're not going to continue to turn our backs. We're not going to continue to let people die of fentanyl overdoses. And people that oppose this ordinance are the same folks that don't have a plan to prevent drug overdoses. Too many people are dying in these streets, folks. We're not doing anyone any favors. Yes, I support it. I strongly support it. It's a huge area of contrast between me and my opponent. There is opportunity to address fund the treatment provision, but I'm not going to let the perfection be the enemy of progress. We need to do something.
Thank you very much. I feel like you might have a rebuttal.
Yeah.
30 seconds.
I mean, this is exactly what I mean about performative politics. I mean, getting a petition to get Lisa Herbold to sign and approve a bill that Sheep was sponsoring is performative, and going down to, yell at the council. what will matter? Like, we need to solve this problem. There's absolutely no doubt about that. We need to solve the problem, and we can. But the budget will determine whether or not we are actually going to put our money where our mouth is and find a solution.
30 seconds?
Please.
So, and my opponent just aptly alluded to the fact that even Councilmember Herbold supported this bill. Think she's not on the ballot, but even Councilmember Herbold, the chair of the Public Safety Committee, supported this bill, and my opponent does not.
I didn't say
Like she's equivocating on really important issues. There's no time to think. The urgency is now. We must act.
I'm going to leave it at that for now, if I may, and I think we'll move on to another piece here. Rob, maybe I can start with you with regard to a question on homelessness and housing here. Here we go. The city and King County have made impressive progress in confronting the plague of homelessness in our community. Much remains to be done. At present, District 1 has no facilities and or shelter for our unhoused neighbors. Do you see this as a problem? And if so, how do you propose addressing this concern? 90 seconds, Rob.
Yes, the district doesn't have enough or a fair amount of housing options and services options is a challenge. And some places in this district are probably the most heavily impacted. Pioneer Square, Soto, even in West Seattle right here. The challenge with homelessness isn't one that's sort of shared equally across this district. Certain communities, including the one that I live in, right down here in Delridge, we're kind of bearing the brunt of seeing a lot of the challenges and opportunities. So I support starting with the root causes of homelessness. The number one issue is the lack of access to affordable housing. So we need to build and invest and fund the investment of affordable housing options at all levels, focusing our efforts from a city investment standpoint on the low-income, middle-income workforce housing, if you will, as well. We need to streamline and improve our permitting process to make it easier to build. That's good for developers, folks. That's also good for residents who want to build, ADUs, for example, in their lots. And it sounds like me and my opponent, we agree on a lot of that. But so yes, we need to start with the root causes, but we're not going to root cause only our way out of this crisis. Root causes are great for preventing tomorrow, but once we're here today, we need to have stronger programs and interventions to take better care of people. And I do support encampment cleanups that connect people with shelter and services. And my opponent's on record saying she does not. We're not doing anyone favors, folks, when we turn our backs.
I feel like there might be a few pieces to respond to here, Maren. I'd like to talk, if you could, about what your opponent said for sure, but also this idea of the fact that District 1 has no facilities and or shelter for our unhoused neighbors and what we might do about that. If you could try to cover that in 90 seconds, that'd be great.
Yep. You can already hear a couple things, like I pointed out in the beginning, misstatements that are, I think, meant to mislead. Please listen to what I say and trust that. As far as where homeless encampments could go, I would love to see each district, pony up 3 spots within each district. We need to share the load. We have the space, and everyone needs to pitch in here. And I agree with my opponent that we don't differ a whole lot, because the solution to this is pretty widely known, and all the data will support that we need to build more housing, we need to build emergency housing, we need to build temporary housing, we need to build permanent supportive housing, and we need more $1 million condos. We just need it all. But the key difference between me and my opponent is that my opponent will struggle to say how he's going to pay for it. We're heading into a $230 million budget deficit. We will need to cut services. This is a big problem, and I want to make sure that price tag doesn't land on the working class. We're already feeling a lot with the property taxes, people trying to age in place. It's really hard, and we kind of pile everything onto property tax, and we need to make sure we generate some progressive revenue.
Rob, it feels like a 30-second adjournment might be in order, please.
where we're going to find the money. It starts with we need to make sure we review the entire budget. I'm calling for an independent third-party audit of the city spending all up to make sure we're aligning priorities to the priorities of this council and this mayoral administration today, and not that of legacy ones 10, 15, 20 plus years ago. We need to streamline and consolidate programs and services where it makes sense. Look, and we need to make sure taxpayers are getting the most bang for our buck today. My opponent and I agree actually on a lot of the progressive revenue opportunities, but I will say this. A plan to tax more without a corresponding plan to make sure that taxpayers are getting the best bang for our buck is no plan at all, sir.
All right.
That is business as usual, and it's irresponsible.
All right, I want to make sure that I give you 30 seconds, probably specific to this budgeting and question, if you could.
Yeah. Well, I definitely agree with that. Like, I am the candidate with the plans, and I write white papers on my site, so please feel free to go and read my plans. We do need to review the budget, and taxpayers should not be spending money that in a wasted way. I worked at Amazon for 15 years. We had a leadership principle called frugality, and it meant every dollar not spent on customers, every dollar wasted is a dollar not spent on customers. We need to be absolutely frugal. Yes, we can do a third-party audit. I would actually love to see the mayor start by telling his directs, they tell their directs, they tell their directs, bubble up 10 ways in your department that you can save us some money.
All right, thank you. I want to move on to another question with regard to housing. Maren, I'll start with you. How can House Bill 1110, this is from the state here, which allows for the expansion of areas where multifamily units can be built, be applied in all West Seattle neighborhoods, specifically in more upscale areas such as North Admiral, Beach Drive, etc.? 90 seconds, please.
So the city, this is a big moment for City Council. You probably all know we're coming up on the next comp plan, which is a comprehensive plan. It's when we take a 20-year look. Every 10 years, we take a 20-year look at how we're going to plan our city. One of the number one things, I've spoken with the people who worked on the last comp plan and asked them, what's one thing we could learn from you all who have done this before? And they said, plan for more housing. So in Seattle, we are decades behind now on planning for housing, and that has a lot to do with zoning. So we're going to need the density. The comp plans there's 5 comp plans that are laid out. The most, forward-looking one is number 5, but it still doesn't go far enough. It will not set us up for success. It's the bare minimum once again. So it's politics as usual, bare minimum. There's an alternative Plan 6 that some groups put together. I would love to investigate that plan because what it does is it lets housing grow with population. So as jobs and population go up, and we don't set a barrier on jobs and population, as those go up, housing can go up with it and buoy up with it. Otherwise, we will continue to end up in this position that we're in where we have a housing shortage.
Thank you very much for that. Minute and a half, Rob, just talking about House Bill 1110, allows for the expansion of areas where multifamily units can be built, etc. Should this be applied to all West Seattle neighborhoods, especially more upscale areas? Some thoughts?
Yes. Yeah, it should. And I'm glad the bill passed. And from various debates and that we've had in forums, it sounds like my opponent and I agree substantially on that particular issue. The affordability crisis that we're experiencing today in the city is a direct result of some bad planning and bad policy decisions that we've made 10, 15, 20 plus years ago. We need to not only play catch up today, but play catch up to contemplate the growth that's going to happen tomorrow. So that means we need to add growth and density. I support plan number 5 of the comprehensive plan. That's going to set forth our strategy for the next 20 years. Plan number 5 is an amalgam. It's the combined approach and plan. It's the biggest, boldest, most ambitious plan that currently exists, and it combines the best elements of all the plans that are actually plans. My opponent just got done telling you that she supports this mythical alternative plan number 6. Folks, this plan exists solely in the fringe pages of certain media outlets, on the opinion pages only. That means it doesn't actually exist. I'm not willing to undercut all the work that's been done by planners and staff and electeds to date. I think this is great. And we need to build off of this comp plan 5. It's a shared opportunity that we have to add growth and add density because it's a shared benefit. So yes, I support.
I mean, of course, we wouldn't, derail anything that's already been done, but I think we would be short-sighted to not at least consider one plan that does actually meet our needs. And this isn't saying that we're going to choose that plan. The point that we're at with the comprehensive plan is that we're going to investigate all 5 plans and then ideally a 6th plan that, I don't know why we wouldn't at least review one that actually meets the city's needs.
All right, thank you. Maybe if you'd like 30 seconds to wrap up this topic, Ron.
Yeah, I strongly support Comp Plan 6 and,
Comp Plan 5.
Excuse me, Comp Plan 5, sorry. Yeah, thank you. Investing in the great work that's already been done in the city. It's big, bold, ambitious, and transformative. And Comp Plan 6, I feel like, and my opponent's actually gone on record and saying, we need to eliminate all new parking requirements for any new development, and no, Comp Plan 6, no, thank you. Comp Plan 5.
Okay, all right. We'll see how this plays out. I'm going to move on to another topic.
These are facts, by the way, not misstatements, publicly verifiable.
We'll keep moving along here. I'd like to talk about the Move Seattle levy, and maybe, Rob, I can start with you. This is a 9-year, $930 million package designed to improve transportation safety. It's going to inspire during your term in office, if indeed you are elected here. It provides approximately 30% of the city's transportation budget. Do you believe this levy has been successful? For one, this was a near tripling of the bridging gap levy it replaced. And would you support the successive levy? And if so, how big should it be and what should it fund? So a big question there, the success of this levy, should that levy be increased?
Yeah, I think the MOVE levy has been, fairly successful. There's an opportunity for continued growth and emphasis items in other areas, and I'll talk about that in a moment. We've, with that MOVE levy, we've added a ton of bike lanes and things that were needed, investments that were needed in our city. But I'm here to talk about something that I admit, it's not the most sexy thing. But I'm here to focus on the basics of what I think a well-functioning city government can and should be delivering for folks. And that's things like, I call it public safety, public infrastructure, and public parks. So public infrastructure, public works is the direct focus of this. And I've walked all of this district and door knocking personally. And I'll tell you, there's a dire need for something not super sexy, but there's a dire need for sidewalks. We need more sidewalks across this city. And certain communities are struggling. I heard, so in Del Ridge, for example, particularly east of Del Ridge, there's not one sidewalk, but 0. And so in Arbor Heights, someone from Arbor Heights, there's a dire need for sidewalks, and that's going to help keep people safe. I want to focus the new MOVE levy renewal on sidewalk infrastructure and bridge maintenance and repairs. And I feel we're good on bikes for now. Let's focus on the basics, sidewalks and bridge maintenance. Let no one else across the city with 40+ bridges experience what we experienced with the West Seattle Bridge.
Thank you. Maren, you can talk about this. The Move Seattle levy hasn't been successful. Would you like to see it renewed, and would you like to see it increased?
I would like to see it renewed. And it has been successful, but I do think that with some of our big programs like transit, I think we've all seen and felt the pain of, it's coming, by when, 2032, it's going to be $4 billion. This is sometimes where I feel like we could do a more rigorous job of ensuring that we are not letting special interests or city politics as usual impact what we're trying to do here as a city. We need to build a connected network of trains, buses, and then we need the good roads. And I am concerned that we build new things before we fix the problems with the existing infrastructure. So, and I'm also concerned about the amount of money that comes. Seattleites, we're generous, we get a levy, we usually approve it, but as you said, Brian, it's 30% of the budget, and we know we're heading into a budget shortfall, and things get cut, and it is things like roads and potholes that gets cut if we don't fund them. And I would love to see other funding sources that don't just land, again, on all of us sort of middle class and below.
Maybe I can ask a follow-up question on that to you, Maren. I'll start with you on this one. Another question came in with regard to transportation funding. Seattle has been studying whether or not to implement a transportation impact fee for some time. So these are the fees that are potentially paid by developers to fix roads and other infrastructure outside of their developments. The City Council released a transportation impact fee rate study earlier this year, talking about it the last several weeks here. Do you support these types of fees with the continued reduction in metro trips? How will this fee support more equitable transportation options? A lot to pick apart there, but transportation impact fees, I feel like, is the main piece of it. Do you support those?
Yeah, I think with all impact fees, we just always need to make sure that we're not creating unintended consequences. So we want to make sure that we accelerate the development of our roads and our streets and our sidewalks and building, and we don't want to delay that in any way. So we need to speed up the permitting processes and simplify the whole system in general. And so if impact fees are going to slow things down, I would be concerned that might not be the best choice. And then what was the other part of that?
It was in regard to the continued reduction in metro trips. Would this fee potentially support more equitable transportation options?
Yeah, and we definitely need to support King County Metro. That's obviously at the county level, but we need more drivers, we need more mechanics, we need to make that a livable, paying wage job, and we need to protect our bus drivers who are feeling, they're feeling the effects of crime. There was the young man that was killed on the Metro bus on Roxbury just a couple days ago, and that's the kind of thing that is going to, make it harder to hire Metro bus drivers. So we really need to protect them. They're doing a service for our community, and we need to make sure that they're safe.
Thank you. Double-headed question here, Rob, about supporting transportation impact fees and also this idea of reduction in metro trips and supporting equitable transportation options.
Yeah, I think we should definitely explore, implementing transportation impact fees. I think we'll need to study that and what implementation might potentially look like here in Seattle. We need to be very thoughtful about potential implementation and also understanding, quote unquote, what's market. As I understand, there are many jurisdictions across even the Puget Sound and King County, including Bellevue, that have transportation impact fees today, but Seattle doesn't, certainly not to that extent. So, we need to kind of weigh the trade-offs, pros and cons. We also need to create the conditions where developers want to build here. Recall that one of the earlier challenges that I was saying is we don't have enough housing options. And so we need to make sure developers and workers that build and the laborers and the building trades, they want to build the housing, they have options and opportunity to build our houses here. And that we need to not only play catch up, to plan ahead. And if we were to impose something super draconian, they might say, well, I'll go somewhere else. So we need to be thoughtful about this, whatever implementation might look like. And then public trans, whatever those funds are spent, I support more, sidewalks and infrastructure. But public trans, I think the key there to avoid, paring back and dialing down services to make sure people feel safe to get on the darn bus to begin with. That's a huge need and opportunity, and people don't even feel safe to do that. That's the basics.
Thank you very much, Rob. I wanted to make sure I moved on to another public safety, and I'll start with you on this one, Rob. Seattle has proposed over the years about utilizing alternatives to sworn police officers responding to certain 911 calls. The city's actually working on a pilot program right now this fall to do this actual thing. Do you support this proposal? How would you take this from policy proposal into action? Why do you believe previous proposals for this type of non-police responding type of activity have not been successful before? A lot going on here, but it looks like we'll get to the idea of alternatives to sworn police officers.
Yes, absolutely. I support alternatives to sworn police officers to respond to certain mental behavioral health crisis situations. It's a formula for disaster, and make no mistake, I'm here to hire more police officers and empower them to effectively carry out their public safety mandate and making sure they have the tools, resources, and trainings they need to be successful. But that doesn't also mean they need to be responding in every single crisis situation. So that's why I support this new alternative response. And it hasn't been, and I've actually met Amy Smith, who's the new director. She's co-equal, this new department is now co-equal response to fire and police. And I met with Amy Smith and there's 6 folks, I met with all 6 of them. Got in front of them, listened to their concerns, listened to the plans, and I'm here to help invest in that, build and scale and grow that. And we've been talking about it for years. Meanwhile, other cities that have been of comparable size and geographic scope have been talking about it in similar times, like Albuquerque and Denver. As long as we've been talking about it together, they've not only launched their programs, but they've scaled and grown them and expanded them. And so we need to avoid recreating the wheel. We have this some sort of like elitist complex sometimes in Seattle. Oh, we need to be the first to market, and it needs to be perfect. Let's look to what's been successful in other jurisdictions. Let's humble ourselves. And we literally don't need to recreate the wheel here. But yes, I strongly support these alternative responses and have been meeting a lot with the frontline stakeholders. And I'm proud to do that, and I look forward to working with this mayor to do that exactly.
Thank you. We're talking about the Community Assisted Response and Engagement Department of Care. Sure. Thank you for bringing that up. Maren, some thoughts about this, 911 alternatives, supporting this? Would you take this? How would you take this from just a proposal into action and scale it up? Some thoughts about 911 alternatives.
Yeah, I'm very excited about the new proposal. I think Amy Smith is doing a fantastic job, and she's come into the city at kind of this ripe moment when we're all so ready for this. I think we should have done this a long time ago. We're finally doing it now. I hope to see it actually go through. I do have the endorsement from the 911 operators, so I'm very proud of that, as well as the highest rating from the Alliance for Gun Responsibility, so I do feel that I am the public safety candidate in this race, and yes, we do need to hire more police, but our best defense right now, and the best way to really provide safety for our city, is to really get behind this new department. So there have been many studies that show we can move up to 50% of the calls from the current armed officers to this new department, and then we just doubled our police force overnight so that we have police for the violent offenders and the violent crimes that we need them for, and we have trained mental health professionals and other skilled professionals for the calls when we don't need an officer with a gun. So this is our best hope. The budget, as it's set out again, and again, this is the difference between me and my opponent, this budget that has been offered at $7 million is not enough. And I think this is why things have failed in the past, is we fund it, but not enough, and then we say, oh, it failed, but it's because we didn't fund it efficiently to make it work.
It feels like there's a 30-second shot.
Yeah, I know my opponent likes declaring that she's the public safety candidate, but as we just learned earlier, she doesn't support the bill to prevent fentanyl overdoses in this city. That common sense approach. You can't be the public safety candidate. You don't support existing state law. 50% there's no basis for that. I've talked to Amy Smith and asked her the same exact question. She said we need to study this issue further. It's not going to free up magically 50% of officer response times and get more officers out there on the street. It's whimsical. And so I'm not going to let the perfection, again, be the enemy of any progress. We need to step it up.
If you wouldn't mind, Maren, put your joint right now.
There's been countless studies, actually, that have shown that we can move up to 50%, and Amy Smith's model city that she likes to reference most often is Durham, North Carolina. They're doing a great job. We can do the same. We have dragged our heels enough, and I would love to see a bold vision here to get this off the ground. And again, that will require a much bolder amount of money than has been put forward so far.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to another question. Maren, I'll start with you here. One of you will be replacing Councilmember Lisa Herbold, the only member to represent District 1. This election also marks the first time since the boundaries have been redrawn, changing the makeup of the district. What are some of the unique challenges of the newer parts of the district, which include Georgetown, Soto, and Pioneer Square? Minute and a half.
Great question. District 1 is such an amazingly diverse district. We have, Beach Drive. We have the Duwamish, which is a Superfund site. We have the Port, which is a huge portion of the economic engine of our city. And now we have added, Soto particularly and Pioneer Square. Soto, we know there's not a lot of voters there, but there's a lot of small businesses there. And this is where public safety comes in, support for small businesses in general, helping small businesses get loans and get set up and streamline the process, and just supporting our small businesses in every way that we can, and helping them deal with the vandalism and crime that is a problem in our city. Pioneer Square, we see better density coming in, and it's just looking beautiful, especially with the new little beach down there. I don't know if you've been down there, but we now have a beach in Pioneer Square, and it's quite inspiring. But obviously homelessness encampments and people down there, a lot of the services are there. So we have Compass and the food providers that are just doing amazing work, and they need our help. And that's probably one of the biggest problems that Pioneer Square faces.
Thank you. Rob, some thoughts about this larger district we're talking about, the unique challenges of incorporating Georgetown, Soto, and Pioneer Square in 90 seconds.
It's a beautiful district. I've had an opportunity to dive deep and just fully immerse myself in the excitement that is this district here, and go into all the neighborhoods and talking to residents and small business owners and community members. Yes, it includes two communities, Georgetown and South Park, that are part of the Duwamish Valley, and some of the most polluted lands in the country. And people that live in those communities, their life expectancies are decades lower than anyone else if they decide to live there their whole lives. It's out of hand. We can and must do better for them. I couldn't agree more on the need and imperative for public safety and providing better small business support for all the diverse small businesses that comprise this district. Soto, for example, there's a lot of businesses of all sizes, primarily small businesses, but there's also a lot of, and I learned this firsthand, because there's also a lot of residents that live in West Seattle that go to work in Soto, my wife included, by the way. And so there's a lot of natural cross-pollination, but I couldn't agree more on the need and the imperative to truly make a difference and impact on our public safety situation. And folks, we're not doing that when my opponent throws around dangerous rhetoric. Unlike my opponent, when asked recently, was a 2020 vote to defund the police a good idea or a bad idea? Folks, I said it was a bad idea. With a straight face, she said it was a good idea. That's not going to help small businesses. That's not going to help all of us.
Thank you. Feels like there might be something you might want to respond to there.
Again,
give us a minute. I feel like it's going to be a larger discussion.
Yeah, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, you will hear misinformation. My opponent, unfortunately, thinks that if he keeps repeating the same intentionally deceptive line, you might believe it. I have never said that I will defund the police. I have said that directly to my opponent as well. He knows that, and you'll probably be getting a lot of mailers from the PAC, the big downtown PAC that is backing my opponent, as well as other members, they have in other districts, they're backing opponents who they hope will not raise taxes on the big corporations and instead push the taxes out to all of us. So it's unfortunate. I would rather not run a campaign where I have to continue to refute misinformation, but that's where we are.
Rob, I'll give you a minute as well, just out of fairness.
Sure, it's not misinformation. During the MLK Labor Candidate Forum in May of 23 this year, the question was asked, It exists. Like, my opponent was for defunding the police before she was against it. This is a fact, folks. This is publicly verifiable fact. And now she seems to be obfuscating her positions. Now she seems to be, trying to move away from a position she took to move forward past the primary. You won't question where I stand on public safety. Because I say what I mean and I mean what I say. You won't hear me obfuscating. You won't hear me conceal or hide or... Her instinct is to defund. It's facts.
I'm going to move on past this piece if I could and move on to another topic. And Rob, I'll start with you. If elected, what committees would you be interested in joining? What committee would you be interested in chairing? There are a number of them. Talking about public safety, transportation, a number of these council members not only represent a district, but also are involved in these committees and chair them. So some thoughts about these committees you might be interested in joining, committees you might be interested in chairing.
Yes, sir. So Public Safety Committee, I am the public safety candidate, make no mistake. Read what the Seattle Times write-up has to say about me. Talk to your neighbor. I have the lived experiences. I have the personal experiences. I don't write white papers, I write policy. I am the public safety candidate in this race, and I'm proud of that. And so, yes, I would love to serve on the Public Safety Committee and chair that one. I think that would be a fairly easy swap out because the retiring council member Herbold currently chairs that committee. And, I think it would be, fairly easy swap out for me to trade chairs with her. Also, it's not just one thing about me, folks. I'm someone who's overcome the foster care system, public housing, rose to success in the military. Now, for the past 10 years, I've been helping businesses of all sizes in the tech industry be successful. And so I've helped contribute to the innovation economy the last 10 years. And so I would love to, be a part of the committee that oversees, and the names the names are less relevant. The names are whatever I, as the new council member, and my fellow council members determine what the names are called. So let's not get hung. The names are, but there's a committee focused on business innovation and driving, economic development, and I would love to be a part of that. But to be honest, I've done so many things, served on so many government boards and commissions. I take the position, it doesn't matter. Put me in the game, coach. Throw me the ball.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let's talk about committees, ones you'd be interested in joining, ones you might be interested in chairing.
People ask this question a lot, and my answer is generally, I want to be where I can be of most service. We don't know who will be on the council, so if I get in there and there's just, an expert on transportation, let's let that expert do the best work. It's about making things work for our city. It's not about me, it's not about grandstanding or ideology, it's about getting back to solving problems and getting our city on track and doing the things that we need to do, and we need to work together to do it, to bring people together, bring people out of their corners. The mayor reached out to me for a coffee, and he said they're not even talking to each other. So we have people that have been pushed into their corners, and we really need to get people talking to each other again. I'm looking forward to doing that. I think I have some, great background and skill that I bring to this. I think anything along the lines of sustainability or climate or land use or, with all of my experience in big tech and business and innovation and would be great, but I want to be where I can be most helpful and most useful.
Thank you very much for that. Just a quick break here. I see some people are already filling out some of these cards. If you'd like a card, we're going to start that Q&A from the audience here in just about 15 minutes, about 13 minutes or so. I'm going to ask you a few more of these questions, and then we'll jump to that the last half hour of the program. So thank you again. If you'd like to fill out one of those cards, raise a hand or just go grab one over there at the table. Thank you to our volunteers from the committee that are picking those up. Sheila, nice work. Let's move on to another question. I'll start with you on this one, Maren. Maybe we can keep going down this idea of climate and things of this nature. Seattle recently passed legislation that increased the protection of trees within city limits. This ordinance sparked much conversation regarding the city's climate goals, as well as discussions on housing equity. Do you believe this legislation struck an appropriate balance between protecting the city's tree canopy and promoting affordable housing?
I actually talked to the mayor about this one. This is tough, you know. Ideally, we say we shouldn't be pitting trees against housing. We can have both, and I do believe that we can have both. I think this is a great. I think that this particular ordinance or bill was a good example of move the ball down the field. Like it's better than it was before. So let's not wait for the bus called perfect to come along. Let's get some work done if we can. And we can only get done what we all agree on. And so if that's what we could get people to agree on, then that's what we pass. And it is better, and I think we can continue to make it better. I think there are so many ways that we can make sure that we are adding the density that we need without sacrificing tree canopy. And we also need to definitely make sure that we are viewing this with equity. We have shade deserts, and they are in the traditionally underinvested, low-income, high BIPOC neighborhoods, and we need to make sure that as we build our tree canopy, we start with the most underinvested neighborhoods first.
Thank you very much for that. I have a question about the tree ordinance that the city recently passed. Did it strike a balance between protecting the canopy and promoting affordable housing? 90 seconds.
Yeah, I speak with the mayor regularly. Unfortunately, we haven't discussed this. We talk a lot about public safety. I served on his police chief search committee. But on the tree canopy, that ordinance just passed, and I think the process wasn't as transparent as it could have been. I think it was kind of rushed through, and I don't think all voices were heard. And I strongly support, making sure as we build and grow, it's not one or the other. It's not grow and build and develop, or preserve the trees and plant more. Both multiple complex things can, and in this case, must be true at the same time. I am the climate candidate, and actually last week I released a very comprehensive climate plan. It's on my website, folks. And tree canopy is a central part of that, because yes, there are certain communities there are certain hotspots around this city and around this district that are bearing the brunt of the climate crises. I live in one, and a few others are part of this. A few other communities are now part of this new district. But yeah, I think we need to have a more transparent process. I'm here to it doesn't matter if the issue is public safety, climate, homelessness, whatever. I'm here to make sure that we build the most transparent process where voices are heard, but compassion defines our approach.
Thank you very much for that. I was going to move on to another topic here so we can cover some more ground. And thanks once again, folks. If you'd like a question asked, make sure you fill out one of these cards. We will answer as many as we can here. I know our group is collecting them, so raise a hand up if you'd like to write down a question, and we'll work on answering it. Thank you very much. That question, let's jump over to you here, Rob. The issue of police accountability is, again, a major concern. Do you favor a police accountability commission that is completely independent of the Seattle Police Department and SPA, that's the Police Officers Guild, the union? Please explain your answer. If yes, what would you do to achieve this? So I think this is a specific question about setting up some sort of accountability commission that is completely independent of the Seattle Police Department if you support something like that.
Yes, I do support, and I fought to hold bad police accountable. Again, serving on countless government commissions, I'm the reason why in this county, me and some fellow folks that I worked with, but I'm one of the co-architects of the reason why we now have subpoena power at the King County Charter or Constitution level for the Civilian Office of Law Enforcement Oversight. Because I believe in effective civilian oversight of law enforcement. This is not a military junta. I believe in good police, and I believe in effective oversight of police. Police have the power to take a life on behalf of the state. There's appropriate checks and balances that need to be had. That doesn't mean I don't support police. We need them. You won't hear me talking about defund. We need police. But yes, I support baking in independent, like civilian oversight bodies that investigate police misconduct and make recommendations to remediate and work collaboratively with the mayor and the council to do exactly that.
Thank you. Maren, so you have some comments about this accountability. Do you favor a police accountability commission that is completely independent of the police department SPA, and explain your issue, please?
Yeah, and I just want to point out that my opponent is actually the only one who's still talking about defund. It's 2023, that was 2020, and it didn't even happen, so it's time to move forward and start focusing on solutions. I do support the highest levels of accountability that we can manage for police. The Seattle Police Management Association in 2022 had some good protections put in place for accountability and discipline. I would love to see the SPA, the Seattle Police Guild contract, reflect at least that level of accountability. That would be a baseline. We know that when we have our top 1 and 2 people in the union having that conversation about Janavi Kundali, that's like, Kandula, sorry.
The pedestrian.
Yes, the pedestrian that was killed by a speeding officer who was on his way to a drug overdose, but the medics were already there and 6 other officers were also on their way. And that seems like, not just a misuse of our resources, but also the conversation really revealed that if culture comes from the top, that was not a heartening conversation to overhear. I hope you all know what I'm referring to.
Thank you very much for that.
Can I? Yeah. So I'm the only one in this race who released a statement when it happened, contemporaneous in time with the officer's insensitive and crass remarks against the tragic death of Kandula. That incident, it significantly undermined public trust and confidence in police. Doesn't mean we don't need police, but all it means is we need better reform. And I'm here to hire more police and make sure we reform the department as we rebuild it. And defund, look, what did defund do? It chased out the first black female police chief we've ever had in the city. I served on the committee to select her successor.
Okay, for that.
Words have actions.
Okay, rejoinder to that, if you'd like to have a fair.
Yeah, and just, when we don't hold bad apples accountable, we're disrespecting and demoralizing the good apples. We know that Gen Y and Gen Z aren't signing up to be police officers in high numbers, and part of that is the culture that studies have shown that one of the most important things to them is the culture of an organization and diversity of an organization. And when we have a police force, where we're sending the largest number of officers to the January 6th, event, or things like the Janavi Kandula event, that's not helping our recruiting.
Thank you very much for that. I'm going to move on to what I think might be the last couple of questions here. And again, folks, we'll be collecting and bringing up these cards in just a little bit, so if you have any last thoughts or questions you'd like to ask, please raise your hand, grab a card over there, we'll make sure we try to work them in. Thanks for your help. This question goes as follows, Maren. Seattle needs housing for people earning 0 to 30% of the area median income. Do you see this coming to West Seattle? What might it look like? 90 seconds.
I see it coming to Seattle in general, and definitely, hopefully, to District 1. I will certainly be advocating for that. We need to have multifamily units. We need affordable units. And again, it's not cheap. We can't, market forces left to themselves will never provide the amount of affordable housing that we need. This is where government does need to step in. We have to step in. And it will be a big paycheck. And so as you think about the budget that's coming up in 2025 and the shortfall that we have, yes, we need to do everything we can to make sure we're spending every dollar appropriately, but we're probably not going to uncover enough money to then, in addition, fund the housing that we need. And so this is where I want to make sure that we are correcting for, Washington State has what they call an upside-down tax code, where the poorest among us pay the highest percentage of their income, and the richest among us pay the least percentage. So we have poor people paying more than their fair share, and rich people paying less than their fair share. And if we're going to solve the problems in our city and come up with the money that we need to solve these big problems, we're going to have to fix that.
Thank you very much. Rob, some thoughts about Seattle needing housing for people earning 0 to 30% of the area median income. Do you see this coming to West Seattle? What might that look like?
Yes, I see that coming to West Seattle, and sort of as I alluded to earlier, I view the opportunity that we all have to build, grow, add density, and diversify our neighborhoods as a shared one. It's a shared opportunity, and because we're all going to share equally in those benefits and reap the rewards, and there's some challenges there as well. But yes, we need to make sure that more people from low-income backgrounds are able to thrive and live through all parts of the district and all parts of the city. I support private-public partnerships like the one at the Admiral Church. That was a pretty cool, innovative, nifty program where community got together and private sector developers got together and on their own, without government encouragement or requirements, are going to do something really cool and innovative to build more low-income apartment or housing options directly for people in Admiral. And in the process, and I've knocked on doors of a lot of folks in Admiral, and like many people, including some of the congregant members, or congregation members, are pleased and excited for that. So I support things like that. But yes, we need more across the entire district.
Thank you very much. I'm going to shift gears right now to some of the questions that have come from the audience. I'm going to do my best to get all these in, folks, so bear with me on this. I wonder if we can switch to a 1-minute mode. And I know that doesn't ever give enough time, but if we can touch on these issues, I think people would really appreciate it to get their questions answered. So, Rob, this is a look again at the budget deficit. Seattle is facing a $250 million plus budget deficit. I think this has been referred to a few times tonight. Which department will you look to for cuts, or which revenue sources will you increase? Can you keep it to a minute, please?
Sure. So again, my starting point is to make sure that whatever tax dollars are in place today, they're wisely invested. I've talked to thousands of people throughout the campaign trail, and most people wouldn't mind paying extra. People don't mind paying their fair share. People wouldn't mind paying extra if called upon. But what people do have a problem with is no one seeing any results. So I'm here to prioritize outcomes and results over blank checks. And we're going to do that by auditing. We're going to do that by making sure that we tie spending to current priorities. We're going to do that by working collaboratively with this mayor and my fellow council members. But I also support exploring new revenue opportunities, and many of which me and my opponent, through multiple debates, have learned we agree on. Preserving jumpstart tax. There's a vacancy lot tax, a head tax, like a CEO for high-income earning CEOs that we should explore. But I believe seniors have the right to retire in place and not continue to be squeezed out of their homes.
Thank you for that. I'm going to move on to you, if I could, Maren, this question. $250 million plus budget deficit, you referred to this earlier. Which department would you look to for cuts, or which revenue sources might you increase? A minute, please.
Yep, we definitely agree on making sure we're spending every dollar as efficiently as we possibly can. And I will take it a step further. So because the downtown PAC that is backing my opponent is the biggest billionaires in our city, he will be reluctant to say that he's going to raise taxes on billionaires. So he says preserving the jumpstart tax. So take a note of that. I think we will need to turn up the jumpstart tax. That's one of our best mechanisms for progressive revenue. You will also not hear him say a extreme capital gains tax. I think we're going to need to look at an extreme capital gains tax at the municipal level to make sure that we have the money needed to both write the tax code as we have it and pay for our city's problems. Vacancy tax is great. It's going to bring in about $30 million. So we should definitely do that, but it's just not a big revenue source.
Feels like there might be a rejoinder in here, just because I heard your name mentioned here, Rob.
Yeah, nonsense. Yeah, like folks, like I'm proud of the fundraising that I have. My campaign is the best, best fundraised campaign across the whole city, including races where there are 3 incumbents currently. We have the most democracy vouchers. I have 2,000 more democracy vouchers than my opponent. Strongest grassroots support. So if we want to talk about that, great. But look, I'm here to make sure people and organizations pay their fair share. But what I am also here to do is I'm not here to take any organization or individual in this city for granted. I'm here to work with them all.
Thank you. Is there any other piece of this that you wanted to touch on as a rejoinder? Okay, fair enough. Let's move on to another question. Thanks, folks, for filling these out. Really appreciate your time in doing this. I'll address this to you to start here, Rob. You say you're a public safety candidate. Why can the police not arrest under age 18 people when they're stealing a car unless someone is hurt? That's one part of it. Also, is the group you want to fund to assist police called the community service officers? I feel like there might be 2 pieces to this. One about juvenile crime and another one about community service officers. However you want to look at that one. Can I give you a minute on that, Rob?
Sure. Yeah. So I am the public safety candidate. I'm not familiar with any specific arrest policies of juveniles for for theft versus other like adults. So to have to look more into that. But I will say this: I am here to hire more police. We are grossly understaffed and under-resourced. We can't effectively enforce many existing laws because we lack the staffing. So yes, I'm here to hire more police and empower them to effectively carry out their public safety mandate. We have existing laws on the books. We don't need to get any more harsh or punitive. We just need to do a better job of enforcing what we have today. And part of that is making sure we have the staffing levels that we deserve. And also, I'm here to set and enforce the highest standards of excellence and professionalism in the communities where police operate and swiftly hold bad police accountable, just like you would anyone if you don't do your job right. As a black man grown up in this country, I've experienced police brutality firsthand, which is how I know we need better police. And we're going to do that here in Seattle because you deserve better response times.
Thank you. Let's talk about public safety. This question about police not arresting people under age 18 when they're stealing a car unless someone's hurt. There's one part of it. Also, there's a group we want to fund to assist police called the community service officers. If you can help this person asking that double-headed question in a minute.
Yeah. I think we definitely run into some unintended consequences when we don't arrest juveniles. One of the things that we see is that they get tapped to be kind of the crime arm of some predatory criminals, and so it is complicated. Obviously we want to be very careful about incarcerating juveniles, but we also have to make sure that they're being held accountable, kept safe from themselves, and keeping the rest of the community safe. Community service officers, I think, are underutilized. I would love to see more community service officers, and I would love to see them armed with non-lethal weapons. So what happened to guns that shoot sandbags? We could have them actually have some weapons so that they could become more of a public piece of the public safety pie, but without the kind of danger of having an armed officer in the community.
Thanks. We can do another 30 seconds on this one because I want to make sure I'm clear with people. Community service officers are actually part of the police department. Some of these 911 alternatives that we might be talking about are actually part of this CARE department, this third public safety department that's been set up by the city. Did you want to talk a little bit more about community service officers, perhaps, or
Sure.
Or 911 officers?
Yeah.
I'll give you 30 seconds.
Let me be crystal clear about this, what I'm about to say right now. Yes, we need more people in the care team or alternative responses. Yes, this community service officer thing sounds like a great idea. But make no mistake, folks. When I win, there is no substitute for officers. We need police officers. We need police officers. We need more police officers because I want to restore good old-fashioned community-oriented policing where we get officers out of the patrol cars and into communities and on bike patrols and foot patrols and emphasis patrols and LCI regularly.
Thank you for that. 30 seconds on this if you'd like to.
we'd love to hire more officers. Unless you have a magic wand, I don't know how that's going to happen. We're doing a lot of things right now. People are just not signing up for this job. I do think we can do better, but we are, losing as many as we're hiring. So if you want to put public safety on hold until we have more officers, you'll be putting public safety on hold for many years. I think we need to get a lot more innovative and creative about how we handle public safety in our communities so that we can actually feel safe.
Thank you. We'll move on to another question. Again, thanks folks for filling these out. Maren, I'll start with you here. Who is the one current city council member that you have respect for and why? A minute if you could.
I like to combine parts and pieces of various council members. I know that there's a lot of frustration with Lisa. I hear it on the doors, but I also hear really great things about Lisa. She apparently is, and her colleagues will talk about her, she is the best one at responding to communities' emails. And I have a very high respect for that. I think that's a very important function for our leaders, is to be in regular contact with constituents. And then Teresa Mosqueda, I love that she has passed some legislation that has actually bubbled up to be successful legislation at the federal level. So I think that's really inspiring when Seattle can lead and create legislation that can have an even wider effect beyond our city boundaries.
Thank you very much for that. So you combined a few council members there, which is fine. Rob, if you'd like to talk about one or more council members, let's keep it at 2. How about that? Do you have some respect for one more?
I have a ton of respect for every last one of them. As a candidate now, understanding some of the challenges and opportunities with this job, and I don't care who my fellow council members are. I'm here to work collaboratively with everyone. I hear many of them don't even talk to each other today, folks. It's toxic. It's divisive. I'm here to move past that. But that said, there are council members like Councilmember Tammy Morales. She proposed something about sidewalks that I actually support a few weeks ago. I like the little things, folks. Not going to win any awards, but it's going to make a difference in your lives. I personally, probably philosophically align most closely with Council Members Sarah Nelson, Alex Peterson, and Council President Deborah Juarez, who, by the way, earlier today we announced proud to have earned their endorsement. And I look forward to working with Councilmember Nelson in particular. The other 2 are retiring, if elected. Stay tuned. More's coming tomorrow, folks. More's coming tomorrow. More news to share, but it doesn't matter who they are. I'm here to work with all of them.
Thank you very much. Rob, I'll come back to you for a question. What is a decision the City Council made in the last 2 to 3 years that you think was a bad decision? And what would you do to change it or improve it? 1 minute if you could.
It's hands down defund. Defund. That decision, again, as a black man growing up in this country, that vote was somehow made with no African American council members on the council at the time that was voted on. That was somehow supposed to benefit me, as in people in the black community. We didn't benefit, no. Nor did we benefit. All of our community here in West Seattle and across this district. So I'll be honest, public safety is the #1 issue that drove me to run. I'm a concerned dad in this race. I got kids. It's out of hand. Someone tragically lost their life at Whaletail Park at the same sandbox where one of my kids lost their tooth. Defund didn't work. It's a failed experiment. We can and must do better. We need to elect leaders to think around corners and be thoughtful and provide a more thoughtful, balanced approach to all these issues. Who knows what's going to be before council tomorrow?
Thank you, Rob. A decision, Maren, the City Council made in the last 2-3 years that you think was a bad decision, and what would you do to change it or improve it?
To be clear, defund didn't happen. And I think what we're doing now with the care team is what we were trying to do then. And I wish we would have done it then. I don't care where the money comes from, and defund was a terrible name, but setting up what the city wanted at the time and what we have been wanting for a long time and what other cities are way ahead of us on is setting up alternative response so that we have a more nuanced ability to respond to public safety issues. We have, armed officers. We have social workers or civilians backed by an officer. We have, community officers, community service officers. We have fully civilian response. Like, we need this nuanced approach and comprehensive approach to public safety. And that's what we were missing, and I think it's what we're finally heading towards.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to another.
Can I?
Let's try 30 seconds, Rob. Go ahead.
So we can quibble about whether defund happened or not. Like, I've talked to enough people directly at the privacy of their doors, and I'll tell you, you can quibble, like, it happened. You're not changing the hearts and minds of what people think. You move around lawn chairs, whatever it is. The council pledged to, or committed to defunding the police by 50%, and then moving money towards other, alternatives. I support alternatives, and yes, I support police. It's not one or the other. It is yes and. I support a more thoughtful, balanced approach.
Thank you. Thank you. More than 30 seconds. I just want to wrap up this part of the conversation.
I think we're good.
Okay. All right. Let's try to jump onto this question. How can the city effectively combat climate change? Maren, can we do a win on this, please?
We have so much we can do. There's so much at the city level that we can do. So first of all, first line of defense is to make sure that we have climate resiliency hubs in every neighborhood so that we can protect people, especially the most vulnerable among us, and that is seniors, that is unhoused, that is low income, so that you have a safe place to go in an extreme weather event. So you have backup power, heat pump air conditioning, and air filtration. That should be in all of our schools, all of our public libraries, and all of our community centers. That is first line of defense. Beyond that, the two biggest things we can do to address climate change is our individual cars and trucks on the road. The more we can reduce that, the better we will do with climate. So public transit is huge. We also have the building emissions performance standards that are coming up to be voted on by this next council. We need to make sure that they have teeth. If they do not, we will not make our 2030 goals as a city, and we're already behind. So we definitely need to get really tough here.
Rob, let's talk climate change for a minute, please.
Yeah, we need to, make sure we have strong energy efficient standards in new buildings. Make sure that we have a equipped and trained workforce to be able to, that's positioned to actually build the buildings and infrastructure for tomorrow in a climate resilient way. I also support expanding electric charging station for EVs across the city. We need to expand our transit options. We do need to get as many people out of single occupancy vehicles as possible, and to cut down on the greenhouse gas emissions. That's significantly contribute. So I support expanding our transit options, but we need to also make transit safe. Make no mistake about that, because we can expand all the options if we want, but people don't feel safe to even get on the bus, step foot on it to begin with, which many don't. And we have failed fulfilling our most basic need and duty. And then also, finally, adding tree canopy. Adding tree canopy, more shade options, and eliminating some of these hot spots that exist around the city.
Thank you very much for that. I'm going to move on to another question. Rob, I'll start with you. This question begins, I am a realtor. I can confirm that's very nice writing here, so that's good. I have found that developers don't want to buy land in Seattle and have to deal with the fees and also the planning department. How will you specifically, underline, change permitting and fees so that building can happen quickly and any impact fees are always passed on? Mentions. Some thoughts about this, some ideas about how you would change permit.
Yeah. So, I do have a couple thoughts. And first off, let me, Gary Payton to Sean Kemp, let me reverse windmill dunk this, but I am proud to have earned the endorsement of the Seattle and King County Realtors. Vetted both of us. They trust me to do these things that I'm talking about. Also, the Master Builders Association, who's going to be building a lot of this affordable housing that I'm talking about. The Affordable Housing Coalition. So endorsed. So we do need to streamline and improve the permitting process. It starts in part by looking to what's been successful in other jurisdictions. Again, we need to humble ourselves. We don't need to recreate the wheel here. Look to what's been successful in other jurisdictions like Houston, for example, world renowned on some of their permitting and the ability to address the broader homelessness crises. Now, obviously, in the Houston example, not everything's one for one is going to port over directly here and be implementable and workable here in Seattle, but my point is, let's look to what's been successful in other areas. And also we need to reopen the permitting building. It's closed to the public since the pandemic and hasn't reopened.
Okay.
Let's reopen it.
Thank you. If I could move on, Maren, your thoughts about things you might change in permitting fees for the city if you're elected.
Yeah, there's a lot of things we can do. The permitting process in Seattle is kind of a nightmare. We need to streamline the design process, but we also need to restructure the way that things are organized. Coming out of big tech and big corporations, you really get an understanding for how the boxes and arrows on an org chart can completely change how much gets done. And I've talked with developers and realtors, and a big part of the problem is that they get assigned a team at a certain point in the process, and then they get to the next point in the process and they have a completely different team. So they're constantly retraining people each time. If we could set up a team that moves with a project all the way through, I think we could make things a lot more efficient.
Thank you for that. I'm going to move on to another question. We'll do a minute each, and I'll start with you, Maren. Does SPA, again referring to the Police Officers Guild, the largest union for the police officers here, does SPA have too much power in our ability to direct police work? Big question there. I know this is an issue back in 2017 when the city passed some accountability measures. Soon after that, the mayor ended up working on the contract with SPA, and a lot of those accountability measures were changed quite a bit. And so I know there's been some concern in the past. Clearly some concern here. Some thoughts about SPA?
Police officers, are hired to protect and serve. And I know that so many of them that is exactly what they are doing. And like I said before, by not holding bad apples accountable, we are disrespecting the good apples, and there are so many good apples, and we need to make sure that they are protected and loved and supported, and so what we want to make sure that we are not doing is allowing special interests of any sort to jeopardize our public safety. Like, we need to have all the players in the game be genuinely invested and selflessly invested in making sure that the number one thing that matters is that our city is safe. I do think that we would have moved faster on a third department if there was a better balance there, and so we definitely need to make sure that we're not ever putting public safety on hold because of special interests.
Thank you for that. Rob, the question, does SPA have too much power in our ability to direct police work? 1 minute, please.
Collective bargaining is a bedrock principle that in this country you have a right to collective bargain over your terms and conditions of employment, and all unions are important. That said, given what I mentioned earlier about the power that police have, that we entrust them with, that potentially means taking a life on behalf of the state, I support holding individual bad officers accountable. And one thing they have, and I've written about this in the Seattle Times and op-eds and things like that before, but police guilds in particular, they're responsible for blocking some significant reform opportunities in policing. So not necessarily on the terms and conditions of employment, and I think they should be able to bargain over that, but on disciplinary matters, I think we do need to revisit what is appropriate, and misconduct, investigating misconduct.
Thank you for that. I'm going to move on to another question. This is from a high school student, and I'll vouch for that again. This handwriting is atrocious. So the student mentions today is National Mental Health Day, and also October is National Bullying Awareness Month. The question is, what about mental health crises and suicide awareness? What are your plans to deal with these issues? Rob, can I start with you on that issue, please?
Yeah. So I'm someone who has overcome the foster care system. And for me, people end up in the foster care system for any number of reasons. For me, it was because my late mother suffered from some then undiagnosed mental health challenges that quickly ate away at her ability to care for me and my two other siblings. 3 black kids. My late Finnish American mother and her 3 black kids in Minnesota in the 1980s. So that's how we ended up cycling in and out, in and out. So I've seen the impact of mental health challenges firsthand. So I'm here to support and invest in additional mental health resources and services in the city to do better for people, including our unhoused neighbors. So we're not only just connecting them with shelter, which they so desperately need, and cleaning up encampments, and yes, I support that, unlike my opponent, but we're also connecting them with the services that they so desperately need.
Thank you. Maren, this is a question about mental health crises, dealing with those, suicide awareness, some plans for this.
Such a crucial issue. As I mentioned, I have, we have a foster care kid, adopted out of the foster care system with mental health issues. He was actually, suicidal and homicidal, which is what you need to get accepted into the most intense program at Western State Hospital. So it was residential for a year. It saved him and it saved our family. And there's 80 beds there. We've also been to, so obviously there's more kids that need that. And I can't tell you how hard we worked to even get there. And we have all the wherewithal in the world, so you can imagine with other families that aren't maybe as able to do that. And then Children's PBMU, we've been in and out of there so many times. They're fantastic. They do great work. That's the kids psych ward at Children's. But it's not enough. And again, it comes down to funding. And unfortunately, when we start to make cuts, a lot of times this is the stuff that's cut.
Thank you. And thank you again, everybody, for these different questions. I don't think I'm going to be able to get to all of them, but definitely most of them. There's a couple of small repeats in here. Maren, let me stick with you for a question about this. How can you ensure that each age demographic is equally protected, focused on, and set up for a better future? Or would you target each age range specifically? Some thoughts about this?
That's a very interesting question. I want to talk to the person who asked it afterwards. I think that's a great question, and I think that we're seeing incredible differences already between, I was mentioning how Gen Y and Gen Z aren't necessarily signing up to do public safety or armed services. We're seeing we're having a really hard time recruiting into the armed services. So I think we need to look at each age range and demographic and generation and find out what's important to them. I mean, this is what I did in big tech was, user research and user experience design and really figuring out all of the different types of people and making sure that it works for all different types of people, not just the oftentimes white male geeks that are writing the code in big tech. And so we can take that same philosophy and make sure we're doing that at the city level.
Thank you. This is a question about ensuring that each age demographic is equally protected and focused on.
Yeah, so first off, I support making sure that our seniors are able to retire in place in their own homes and not be squeezed out and pushed out by the next levy and next property tax that we keep chaining on when no one's tracking and monitoring progress and outcomes. So I support exemptions, for seniors. I think probably some of that would have to come at the state level, but as a principle, seniors deserve to age in place in their homes. And how will I focus on age demographics and prevent discrimination? How I've been doing it. I'm the only one, remember I said the only one who's written one policy that I had the pleasure of helping to write. And the reason why in Martin Luther King County it is now unlawful to discriminate against family caregivers and veterans at the charter, at the highest level, at the Constitution level. And as a family caregiver and veteran, guys, my fingerprints are clearly all over that. But family caregivers not only contemplates people with young kids, but elder care responsibilities as well.
Thank you. I'm sorry to cut you off. It's a very important topic, but I want to make sure we move on to a couple last questions here. Rob, I'll start with you. What is your position regarding bag taxes and sugar taxes? I believe referring to the sweetened beverage taxes that we have in our city. So the bag taxes at 8 cents a bag, sugar taxes, we got that too. Should they be sunsetted? Are they working as envisioned? Some thoughts about this?
I don't have any like strong thoughts on like whether they're working as envisioned, but I do think that we need to study and explore that. I also know taking the sugar tax, for example, well, taking the bag tax first. I think the state legislature, if I understand correctly, maybe I'm wrong, need to confirm, but like there's a state bag tax, in place that I think is intended to be the controlling one. And so if that's the case, again, need to confirm, but like then the city of Seattle government is probably limited in its ability to go above and beyond that. The sugar tax one, I don't know if it's working as intended. Is obesity down in the city? I think that was one of the prime intended goal. Are some of those funds that's being used for that tax? What are the outcomes of those programs, and like, are we seeing results? I don't know. Those are all interesting questions we need to learn and further explore before like weighing in even further.
Thank you. Some thoughts about bag taxes, sugar taxes, should they be sunsetted? Are they working as envisioned?
It's not complicated. We've always done this. We have taxes that help modify behavior. That's what these types of taxes are. We want to encourage the good behavior over the bad behavior. In the case of the sugar tax, obesity and diabetes are absolutely epidemic levels, and we all pay for that. And so it's not just about the person who is now maybe being forced to make a different choice about sugar. It's something that supports all of us. So yes, I think they're working, and I think that we need to continue using behavioral modification taxes as a lever to encourage the right behavior. There's something called a congestion tax that France passed to encourage people to drive their cars less. I don't think we can do it here because we don't have the public transit set up the way that they do, but nobody liked it at first, and then everybody voted it in the next time because it made life better for everyone.
Thank you. It's time for closing statements here, and I believe that you spoke second off the top, so I'll have you wrap up here. Rob, a closing statement of a minute and a half, if you would, and just speak to voters out here. Thank you.
Sure. So Seattle is at a crossroads. We can elect more of the same, or we can change course and elect a new, better approach, more collaborative one to all the issues. Everyone deserves to feel safe in their own neighborhoods and their own communities, free of threat of crime or unequal justice by those sworn to protect. Unlike my opponent, who's been inconsistent on really important issues like public safety, I've been entirely consistent the whole time, and I'm here to provide a more thoughtful, balanced approach to all the issues, especially public safety, that recognizes the importance of policing and enforcement, reform and individual officer accountability, and civilian-led responses or alternatives. We can't just kick the legs out of policing enforcement and hang our hats on alternatives and police reform and think that's going to be the end-all be-all to solve our public safety challenges. It doesn't work. Our city doesn't need another unreliable, inconsistent council member. We've had that. The city deserves better. You all deserve better. I'm the only one in this race who's actually written government policy and helped to pass law. And I clearly didn't win the high school popularity contest with my former candidates. Oh well, I'm not running for that. I'm running to make progress on these issues. Proud to have earned the endorsement of our local Democratic Party, the Seattle Times, amongst others. Stay tuned for tomorrow, more to come. Would love to earn your vote.
Thank you. Maren, a minute and a half to wrap up, please.
Some of these things that you're hearing, this is not what the city needs. This might be more of the same. We don't need people who are sowing seeds of intentional deceit. And we don't need people who are insulting the former candidates, calling it a personality contest. These are District 1 leaders who are very respectable people, and I'm honored that they endorsed my campaign. I don't think it was a popularity contest. So District 1 deserves an experienced leader who has the proven ability to listen, build trust, champion evidence, not ideology, and deliver results. Someone who has not just goals, but plans that include how we're going to pay for them and how we'll avoid further burdening the working class. That's what I've been doing for 25 years in big tech, and I hope that's what you've heard from me tonight, and that's what you can expect from me when I'm elected. But ultimately, this campaign is about community, our community, and the amazing unstoppable power that we have when we come together to solve big problems, which I've heard from many people tonight in the audience. I'm proud to have the endorsement of all 6 of our former opponents, including Phil Tavel, Preston Anderson, and Stephen Brown. I'm also endorsed by the King County Democrats, the Stranger, MLK Labor, dozens of labor councils or labor unions, community organizations, and leaders in the community, and I hope to earn your vote in November and serve you in City Hall.
Thank you both very much. Can we give the candidates a big round